But over countless tens of thousands of years, the number of people who have died on Immortal Crossing Island is innumerable, yet not a single person has become immortal. Even so, every time Immortal Crossing Island opens, there are countless people who find themselves without hope for a breakthrough and come to the island seeking that slim chance of attaining immortality. Apart from that time, it is rare for anyone to come to Immortal Crossing Island. Because Immortal Crossing Island has its own rules outside the opening period. Even if one sees the island, it's impossible to set foot on it. However, there is one exception. That is, someone like Lin Jing, who was intercepted by Immortal Crossing Island from the transmission channel. Speaking of which, it was Lin Jing's misfortune. The appearance of Immortal Crossing Island was erratic, and sometimes, as the island moved, it would affect the void tunnels. It was just so for Lin Jing, who was originally transmitting just fine. As a result, he was affected by the suddenly appearing Immortal Crossing Island, causing a deviation in his transmission that led him to be sent directly onto the island. Of course, Lin Jing was not the only unlucky one, but it wasn't very common either, because only when performing super long-distance intercontinental transmissions could this kind of situation possibly occur. Other short-distance transmissions could not affect Immortal Crossing Island at all, and therefore wouldn't be affected by it. Beyond this, Lin Jing also learned about some of the situations on Immortal Crossing Island. The area where Lin Jing was previous at and the space outside the light barrier were, at most, considered the boundary of Immortal Crossing Island and could not even be counted as the outskirts. And the small island in the lake where Senior Ape resided could, in reality, only be regarded as the outer area of Immortal Crossing Island. Immortal Crossing Island is vast, immensely so. If we were to truly compare, it is even larger than the Nanming domain after the calamity. As for the internal regions of Immortal Crossing Island, Senior Ape described it as follows. Every time Immortal Crossing Island opens, several lifespan-nearing tribulation passers or peak Mayana cultivators would head to the internal regions of the island, vainly seeking that slim chance of becoming immortal. Yet in the end, not a single one of them would come out alive. Additionally, Lin Jing received another piece of bad news. After entering Immortal Crossing Island, one cannot leave. Crossing to the immortal, either ferry to the Yellow Springs or ascend to immortality. Beyond these, there is no third choice. Upon hearing this news, Lin Jing's heart sank. He definitely did not want to spend his life stuck on Immortal Crossing Island. Eventually, after Lin Jing repeatedly pleaded and insisted, he finally managed to learn from Senior Ape about a possible way out. At the very western edge of Immortal Crossing Island, there is a desert, and within that desert there is a trial grounds. By passing through the trials there, one could leave Immortal Crossing Island. However, so far, innumerable people who ended up on Immortal Crossing Island and later regretted it attempted those trials, but in the end, not one person managed to succeed. Upon hearing this, Lin Jing felt even colder at heart. But after several days of deep contemplation, Lin Jing still decided to try his luck at the trial grounds. Of course, before that, he had to help Senior Ape ripen the 5-element spirit fruits. After all, Senior Ape had been quite decent to him, never once using force to coerce Lin Jing from start to finish. Moreover, during that time, Senior Ape provided Lin Jing with many spirit fruits and spirit liquid, among other heavenly materials and earthly treasures for him to consume. On one hand, consuming those spirit fruits was beneficial to the ripening of the 5-element spirit fruits. On the other hand, it helped in cleansing Lin Jing's body. Under 2 months of ripening, the 5-element spirit fruits underwent significant changes. According to Senior Ape, if not for Lin Jing's efforts in ripening them, it would have probably taken several more decades for the 5-element spirit fruits to mature. But Senior Ape couldn't wait anymore. It was already at the peak of nascent soul cultivation, on the verge of stepping into the next realm. It desperately needed the 5 elements spirit fruits to help itself break through to the next realm. In the following period, Lin Jing continued to cultivate, and at the same time, hastened the ripening of the five-element spirit fruits. Time flashed by, and soon, another 3 months had passed. It had been 5 months since Lin Jing arrived here. During this period, due to limitations, Lin Jing hadn't entered the system space even once. However, Lin Jing wasn't in a hurry. On the contrary, cultivating daily under the five-element spirit tree, Lin Jing felt his progress wasn't slow. And indeed, as Elder Monkey had said, his body was undergoing subtle changes, slowly transforming. Because Lin Jingji was a cultivator with a five-elements mixed spirit root, he was able to hasten the ripening of the fruits much faster than Elder Monkey had anticipated. After these 5 months of continuous hastening, the five-element spirit fruits were finally close to maturation. At this moment, on the five-element spirit tree, in the very center of the small canopy, the dazzling and colorful five-element spirit fruits were emitting an unusual glow. This glow bathed the entire small island in a brilliant array of colors. Elder Monkey, hovering in midair, looked at the five-element spirit fruits that were about to ripen with great excitement. And Little Gold and Little Black, the two fierce birds, also guarded the island on both sides, gazing towards the five-element spirit tree. Meanwhile, Lin Jingji channeled his cultivation technique with all his might. Countless streams of spiritual power surged from his hands, absorbed by the formation, and flowed towards the five-element spirit tree. As time slowly passed, the glow emitted by the five-element spirit fruits on the tree became ever more resplendent. 1 hour, 4 hours, 6 hours. This final phase of maturation always seemed so difficult. It passed like this until 10 hours had elapsed. Finally, after a burst of exceptionally splendid radiance, the five-element spirit fruits matured. At the moment the five-elements spirit fruits ripened, several figures suddenly appeared, rushing towards the small island. And Lin Jing was immediately startled. He hadn't expected that no sooner had the five-element spirit fruits matured than there would be those seeking to seize them. "Ha ha! Old monkey, I'll gladly take these five-element spirit fruits for myself." One of them, a resounding voice, rang out. Lin Jing looked up to see a dark bear flying through the air towards the island. "Blind bear, what mess are you making? These five-element spirit fruits should rightfully be mine." The second voice that came was very sharp. Lin Jing turned to look and saw another creature with a pointed beak. It was a white crane. The white crane and the black bear, one on the left and the other on the right, were both attacking the small island. Besides this bear and crane, there was a crimson giant python that burst out from beneath the lake shore, rearing its head hundreds of meters high. "You two, now is not the time to quarrel. Let's secure the five-element spirit fruits first." A hoarse voice spilled from the mouth of the giant python. The giant python, unlike the bear and the crane just before, kept its gaze fixed on the five-element spirit fruits atop the five-element spirit tree on the island in the lake from the moment it appeared. Just as the five-element spirit fruits ripened, 3 powerful demonic beasts took action to seize them. And the aura emanating from their bodies was extraordinary. They seemed to be not much different from Elder Monkey in terms of strength. At this moment, although the five-element spirit fruits on the tree had matured, they were still undergoing the final bit of change. The entire five-element spirit tree began to wither slowly, and the essence within the tree started to converge rapidly into the fruits. Only when the five-element spirit tree was completely withered and all its essence gathered inside the fruits, causing them to fall off on their own, would the five-element spirit fruits be considered fully mature. At this time, 3 demonic beasts had already arrived, attacking the barrier together. Yet these attacks only caused the barrier to tremble slightly. It was evident that the senior ape had put considerable effort into this barrier. Then, the senior ape called over Lin Jing and directly passed the immortal five elements technique it had obtained to him. Afterwards, it left a breath imprint on Lin Jing. It then spoke rapidly. "This breakthrough of mine will require no short amount of time. This immortal five elements technique is sufficient for cultivation up to the divinity transformation stage. It was left behind by a human cultivator who entered this immortal crossing island before. Now, I'm giving it to you. Also, if you go to the desert, should you encounter a remnant soul, no matter what he says, don't believe him. Remember to stay away from him. If it's impossible, come straight back. The hurried instructions from the senior ape afforded no time for explanations. In a moment, I will need to borrow the power of the divine phoenix feather on you again. Consider a reward for giving you this immortal 5 elements technique. Afterward, I'll have Little Gold take you out to the boundary of Immortal Crossing Island. Remember, stay along the boundary outside the light screen. Never enter within the light screen. If you encounter other demonic beasts, the power of the divine phoenix feather is limited. It can't protect you for too long. The breath I left with you is only sufficient to keep you unharmed in the boundary region. At this time, the entire 5-element spirit tree had withered away as well. Plop! The brilliant 5 elements spirit fruit fell from the dried-up branches. Seeing this, the 3 demonic beasts attacking the barrier grew even more frenzied. Cracks began to appear on the barrier, and it looked as though it might shatter at any moment. Just then, the senior ape stretched out his hand and summoned the 5 elements spirit fruit to him. After that, he took off into the air with Lin Jing. Seeing this, the 3 demonic beasts hurriedly attempted to follow. At that moment, the senior ape placed a palm on Lin Jing. After this palm, the virtual image of the divine phoenix appeared on Lin Jing's forehead. Instantly, a wild aura surged forth. Being so close, the 3 demonic beasts facing the virtual image of the divine phoenix were instantly stunned. Seizing the opportunity, the senior ape quickly retreated backward, leaving Lin Jing still standing in place. After the senior ape had retreated, he spoke loudly. "Brother Bull, I leave the rest to you." Following the senior ape's words, a wild bull demon beast materialized out of nowhere. By this time, the 3 demonic beasts had just snapped out of their daze. The wild bull demon beast opened its massive mouth. Moo! A tremendous roar of a bull erupted, causing Lin Jing to be shaken until he felt somewhat dizzy and involuntarily fall from the sky. As Lin Jing fell, Little Gold flapped its wings, shooting up into the air to catch him. Then, it soared higher, avoiding the 3 demonic beasts and flying away with Lin Jing. Moments later, the 3 demonic beasts fully regained their senses. All turned their heads, looking incredulously at Lin Jing. However, at that moment, the wild bull demon beast spoke. "Gentlemen, your opponent is me. Let's not break the rules among us beasts of Immortal Crossing Island." Upon hearing this, the 3 demonic beasts gave Lin Jing a deep look and then turned to the wild bull demon beast, responding, "Fine." In the midst of the wild bull demon beast's thunderous roar, it took quite a long time for Lin Jing to recover. When he came to, he was lying on the back of the golden giant eagle, Little Gold. With wings spanning dozens of meters, Lin Jing lay upon its back, safe even while lying down. Moreover, Little Gold's speed was also very fast. Thus, Lin Jing lay on Little Gold's back, pondering the last words of Senior Ape. Inside the desert, there is a remnant soul. Also, do not trust what he says. From this perspective, that remnant soul must be quite dangerous, which is why Senior Ape took the trouble to warn him. For now, forget about these matters. Let's wait until we reach the desert to address it. Afterward, Lin Jing thought of another warning from Senior Ape, not to enter the light curtain range of Immortal Crossing Island again. Lin Jing naturally understood this. This time, he had encountered Senior Ape, but next time, if he encountered other demonic beasts, he might not be so lucky. Thinking about it, Lin Jing suddenly felt that his luck in encountering Senior Ape was actually quite good. At the moment, lying on Little Gold's back, the strong wind whistled past his ears. In an instant, Lin Jing even felt a sense of comfortable pleasure. Then, Lin Jing propped himself up, smoothed out the feathers on Little Gold's back with his hand, placed his hands behind his head, and lay down again in a more comfortable position. Following that, Lin Jing spoke to Little Gold. "Little Gold, I have to leave. If you can't see me anymore, will you miss me, huh? Caw." Little Gold didn't seem very enthusiastic, merely issuing a casual sound in response to Lin Kai. Lin Jing naturally wouldn't say much more. After all, Little Gold was probably reluctant to be used as a beast of burden to carry him out. After all, it was a nascent soul-stage demonic beast, whereas Lin Jing was only at the foundation establishment stage. It's normal for it to be unhappy. As a nascent soul-stage demonic beast, Little Gold's speed was indeed very fast. In just a few hours, Little Gold had carried Lin Jing out of the light curtain into the outside world. After finding a safe place, Little Gold suddenly flapped its wings and ascended into the sky. The previously comfortable Lin Jing, lying on Little Gold's back, failed to react in time and fell straight down. There it was, Lin Jing and Little Gold, one human and one eagle, one ascending and the other descending, parting ways just like that. As Lin Jing fell beside Little Gold's claws, it suddenly extended its previously curled claws. Just like flicking a forehead, it flicked him directly toward the ground with one toe. Lin Jing instantly understood that Little Gold was blatantly seeking retaliation. However, at that moment, Lin Jing couldn't move even if he wanted to, because with that flick, Little Gold directly used a force of spiritual power to restrain him. Then, there was a loud thump, and a heavy object hit the ground. This heavy object was none other than Lin Jing, who had fallen from the sky, and he had landed face first. Fortunately, Little Gold bore no ill will, as the spiritual power that bound Lin Jing protected him. But even so, Lin Jing was covered in dust, looking quite disheveled. At that moment, the spiritual power binding him dissipated, and Lin Jing was able to move his body, then looked up at the sky toward Little Gold, only to see Little Gold circling once above his head. Lin Jing was just about to speak when an unidentified object fell from the sky. As soon as Lin Jing recognized what was falling from the sky above, he didn't care about his dusty, disheveled appearance anymore. He leaped out with unprecedented speed. Splatter. The unidentified object landed where Lin Jing had just been standing, splashing everywhere. This lump of unidentified material was none other than Little Gold's eagle droppings. Fortunately, Lin Jing dodged in time and was spared. Otherwise, if he had been splattered with eagle droppings, that really would have been a hoot. This Xiaojin was definitely taking revenge. Lin Jing guessed that it was dissatisfied with being used as a mount. The key issue was that Lin Jing was quite proud of it. That was probably why Xiaojin's desire for revenge had intensified. Screech! Xiaojin, seeing Lin Jing's disheveled appearance, screeched happily before spreading its wings to fly into the sky and then disappearing from sight. Lin Jing, watching Xiaojin vanish, had no way to retaliate and could only say resentfully, "Next time I see you, I'm definitely having golden roasted wings." After venting, Lin Jing also left the area right away. After leaving the area, Lin Jing didn't go far. After observing carefully for a while and seeing that there was no other activity around, he then directly entered the system space. Having not entered the system space for several months, Lin Jing still missed it quite a bit. As soon as he entered the space, the spirit plants of the second rank, already mature in the spirit fields behind him, displayed a variety of colors and were full of enticing fragrances from the mature spirit medicine, constantly swaying in the breeze. Lin Jing flew past the earth spirit fields planted with third-rank spiritual plants and went straight to the spirit fields in the back. Looking at these mature spirit plants, Lin Jing then directly summoned the system. System, activate the harvesting function for spirit plants. As Lin Jing's words fell, a system panel appeared in front of him. On the system panel, Lin Jing directly chose the spirit field that needed harvesting. Once the selection was made, the system's voice rang out again. Harvesting spirit plants requires 1 harvest point. Would the host like to proceed with the harvest? Harvest, Lin Jing replied without hesitation. Ding! System notification. Host has used the harvesting function for the spirit field, deducting 1 harvest point, current remaining harvest points, 5563. As the system notification sounded, the mature spirit plants in the fields began to uproot themselves one by one. This speed was much faster than if Lin Jing had harvested them himself. In just a short while, all these spirit plants had been harvested and were neatly stacked at the edge of the fields. Following the completion of the harvest, the system's notification sounded again. Ding! System notification. Congratulations to the host on the successful harvest of second-rank spirit plants. Reward earned 216 harvest points. These second-rank spirit plants yielded far too few harvest points. For over 30 acres of second-rank spirit plants, only a couple hundred harvest points were awarded. If he were to concoct elixir medicine, Lin Jing could gather these harvest points in less than half a month and even have plenty to spare. After the harvest of the spirit plants, Lin Jing briefly processed them and then stored them inside the system space. Next, he went to the front, to the fields planted with high-grade spiritual plants. Once in the fields, Lin Jing took out a spirit-quelling box from his storage bag. Then he opened it directly. Inside this spirit-quelling box were the eternal life vine that Lin Jingji had obtained from Xiaojin and Xiaohe before. Previously, Elder Ape had already given him the eternal life vine and then compensated Xiaojin and Xiaohe with other spirit fruits. Xiaojin's desire for revenge against Lin Jing also included this aspect. After all, the eternal life vine was found by Xiaojin and Xiaohe together. Now that Lin Jing had obtained it, Xiaojin was bound to hold some resentment. Since acquiring it, Lin Jing had kept the eternal life vine inside the storage bag all this time. Because he hadn't had the time to enter the system space, Lin Jing had not planted it yet. Now that he was inside the system space, it was the perfect opportunity to plant it. Next, Lin Jing came to the newly opened spirit field, dug a hole, and planted the eternal life vine. No sooner had he planted it than a system notification arrived. Ding! System notification. The system has detected that the host has planted a high-grade spiritual plant. Due to the excessive rank of the spirit plant, which surpasses the system's level, the current level supply of spiritual power is insufficient for the growth of the spirit plant, resulting in its inability to grow normally. This notification made Lin Jing frown. He hadn't expected the rank of the spirit plant to be so high that it exceeded the system's level. Lin Jing now had a 4th-rank system space, and planting 4th-rank high-grade spiritual plants was not an issue. Therefore, the eternal life vine must be at least 5th rank. Now that the eternal life vine could not grow normally, Lin Jing had no choice but to dig it up again. He then cleaned off the soil and put it back into the spirit-quelling box. Having done all this, Lin Jing looked at the recently harvested clearing behind him, then went to the clearing and began to plant new spirit plants. A day later, Lin Jing came out of the system space. This time, Lin Jing had stayed in the system space directly for a whole day. He first replanted the 30-odd acres of spirit field with second-rank spirit plants, then sat down to rest and meditate. After completing all these tasks, Lin Jing then headed to the alchemy room. He went to the alchemy room not to perform alchemy, but to make a breakthrough. After accumulating for such a lengthy time, Lin Jing was fully prepared and could advance to the later stages of foundation establishment. However, right at the beginning on the small island in the lake, Senior Ape noticed that Lin Jing was about to break through and directly suppressed Lin Jing's realm, pushing it down. And he advised him to firmly condense his spiritual power and cleanse his body. And just like that, as soon as he came out, the suppressed spiritual power within Lin Jing burst forth. This time, Lin Jing did not even consume any elixir medicines and simply succeeded in charging through the barrier, advancing to the 7th level of foundation establishment. He became a late-stage foundation establishment cultivator. After coming out, Lin Jing stretched his body briefly, feeling the surging spiritual power within him, and with a smile on his face, he took a long, deep breath. Now, Lin Jing was one step closer to the golden core stage. Then, Lin Jing determined his direction and set off towards the desert area that Senior Ape had mentioned. The journey to the desert area would be a long one. Immortal Crossing Island was vast to an exaggerated extent. This time, Lin Jing walked for a full 6 months before he left the dense forest area and reached the edge of the desert region. In these 6 months, nothing unexpected occurred. With the breathmark that Senior Ape had left on Lin Jing's forehead, no demonic beasts dared to attack him on his journey. And just like before, Lin Jing was searching for various high-grade spiritual plants. On his way, He harvested several dozen third-rank spirit plants. However, he found all the other spiritual grasses. But the main ingredient for refining the yellow dragon elixir, the yellow dragon spirit grass, remained elusive. This unavoidably made Lin Jing feel a tinge of regret. Nevertheless, now that he had already reached the desert area, Lin Jing gave up on the idea of searching further. Otherwise, if he were to turn back, he wouldn't know how much effort it would take, and it was still uncertain whether he would find it. Then, Lin Jing stood at the edge of the dense forest, gazing at the boundless desert before him, then lifted his leg and stepped forward, walking into it. Upon entering the desert region, Lin Jing didn't hesitate at all and immediately headed deep into the sands. According to Elder Yuan, the trial grounds lay within the deepest reaches of this desert. In the blink of an eye, several days passed. After days of arduous travel and crossing the peripheral zones of the desert, Lin Jing finally arrived within its true expanse. With each step, his feet sank unevenly into the sand, making his trek through the desert arduous, very much like that of a traveler lost within its vastness. This place was nothing like the periphery he had entered, where no harsh winds ravaged the land, no scorching sun beat down, and occasionally small demonic beasts could be seen frolicking and chasing one another. Here, the real desert reigned, with sands engulfing the sky and the blazing sun overhead. The sand underfoot was like grains in a frying pan. Even shod in boots, Lin Jing still felt a burning sensation creeping up from the soles of his feet. Above him, the relentless sun parched his lips. Lin Jing looked up at the intense sun and couldn't help shaking his head. He then gathered spiritual power to form a sphere of water, which he poured over himself and swallowed the remaining droplets. It took the conjuring of 2 or 3 water spheres to alleviate the searing heat that had overtaken him. Afterward, Lin Jing continued deeper into the desert. The further he walked, the hotter the desert became. At this moment, Lin Jing felt as if he were in a fiery furnace. Harsh winds carrying sand and gravel battered against him, the particles cutting like blades against the spiritual shield he had formed with his spiritual power. Without the protection of the spiritual shield, Lin Jing's body would have been covered in cuts and abrasions by now. Even before he ventured this deep, the signs of vicious winds had started to show, with gusts pelting his body painfully with sand. However, the deeper he went, the more ferocious the desert winds became. Eventually, not just sand but even pebbles were swept up by the tempest, striking against Lin Jing. This could no longer be referred to as mere winds. It was a storm. With no other choice, Lin Jing had to maintain his spiritual shield and continue marching through the storm. Walking through the desert with a spiritual shield consumed spiritual power at an alarming rate, and there were times when Lin Jing could not endure even 4 hours before his reserves ran dry. Moreover, the deeper he ventured into the desert, the thinner the spiritual energy became, making absorption from the surroundings impossible. This meant that Lin Jing had to retreat into the system space to rest after covering some distance. Fortunately, Lin Jing had access to the system space. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been sure he could have made it this far. Before long, Lin Jing could no longer hold on and once more retreated into the system space, this time his spiritual power depleting in less than 6 hours. As soon as he entered the system space, the abundant spiritual energy made him take a long, deep breath. Inside the system space, compared to the outside desert, it was like heaven and hell. Having come this far, the spiritual energy in the desert is almost non-existent. I wonder how the others managed to enter this place, Lin Jing pondered, taking in the dense spiritual energy of the system space while recalling the harsh exterior conditions. Oh, that's right. Others must possess strengths not inferior to my own. Entering the desert, they naturally wouldn't struggle as much as I do, he realized, following which Lin Jing let out a wry smile. After all, those who could make it here were not of low cultivation. Even others who, due to teleportation, had strayed onto the island were not like Lin Jing, possessing such low cultivation. How could those able to afford intercontinental teleportation be ordinary cultivators? Lin Jing guessed that he was probably the cultivator with the lowest cultivation to enter the immortal crossing island. Within the system space, Lin Jing sat and meditated for 6 hours to fully replenish his depleted spiritual power. After resting, Lin Jing immediately entered observation mode, wanting to scout the path ahead. Since entering the desert, Lin Jing had no specific route, only a general direction given to him by his predecessor, the ape. Following this direction, the ape had told Lin Jing that this desert was peculiar. No matter which way one walked, they would never deviate from the central direction of the desert. Because the desert was like a disc, once one entered, they would always be moving from the outside towards the center. And the trial grounds were located right in the center of the desert. In fact, to judge whether one was going in the wrong direction, one only needed to observe the wind and sand, as well as the surrounding environment. The stronger the wind and sand, and the more adverse the environment, the closer one was to the center, meaning they were on the right path. One only needed to keep moving inward. After entering observation mode, Lin Jing first saw the sky filled with yellow sand, swept up by the fierce wind everywhere. This fierce wind swept up not just sand and gravel. Even smaller stones were lifted into the sky. Some wind-blown sand on the desert ground also revealed the white bones of giant beasts buried in the sand. These bones had been there for who knows how long, and despite being exposed to the wind and sun for such a long time, their surfaces remained smooth and shiny. It can be assumed that the creatures were quite formidable in life. Lin Jing had already seen many such bones along his way. Lin Jing merely glanced at them and then paid no further attention. Then, he raised his perspective and looked further inland. As his view ascended, Lin Jing peered through the sandstorm ahead. He saw what seemed to be a small green dot in the distance. However, due to the distance and the wind and sand interference, Lin Jing couldn't see it very clearly. Next, with a thought, Lin Jing controlled the observational perspective to move forward, wanting to clearly see what was ahead. As Lin Jing controlled the observation mode, moving closer, the small green dot grew increasingly distinct. Ahead, it seemed to be an oasis in the middle of the desert. And furthermore, Lin Jing observed that there seemed to be no wind and sand near that oasis. Lin Jing immediately felt a surge of elation. The time he had been in the desert had nearly driven him mad with the torment of wind and sand. Afterward, Lin Jing exited observation mode, deciding to first take a look at the oasis nearby. Upon leaving observation mode, Lin Jing stood up and condensed spiritual power into a spiritual shield before leaving the system space. Once out of the system space, the hot air assaulted him instantly, along with the piercing wind, carrying sand and pebbles that pounded against Lin Jing's spiritual shield. Though the attack power of these sand and pebbles wasn't very strong, they still consumed a substantial amount of spiritual power when hitting the spiritual shield. Lin Jing continued like this, holding up the spiritual shield, step by step, walking towards what lay ahead. Pity that in this desert, there were restrictions that prevented flight, forcing one to proceed on foot, just like Lin Jing was doing. Otherwise, Lin Jing wouldn't have had to suffer such hardship in his journey. When viewed from observation mode, the distance didn't seem too far, but only when Lin Jing truly began the trek did he finally realize the hardship of this distance. By the time he had left the sandstorm zone and reached the oasis, Lin Jing's spiritual power was once again exhausted. However, fortunately at this time, he had already arrived in the oasis area. In this oasis area, there were no sandstorms, and even the climate here wasn't as scorching as before. Lin Jing turned back and looked, only to see that behind him, the wild wind was still rampaging, forming a chaotic storm zone in front of the oasis. But in the oasis itself, and the area before it, there was a gentle breeze blowing. It formed a stark contrast with the storm behind. It was as if the sandstorm area behind was the true trial grounds. But Lin Jing knew that it definitely was not, because, with his level of cultivation, he had managed to get through, not to mention others. Afterwards, Lin Jing turned his head, looked towards the oasis, and walked in. Surrounding the oasis, various trees gathered around, and at its very center was a clear spring. Seeing that clear spring, Lin Jing headed straight for the oasis. Suddenly, his foot slipped, and he staggered, nearly falling to the ground. Lin Jing steadied himself and quickly looked down. Just beside Lin Jing's foot, At the spot he had just stepped on, a skull had appeared. And moreover, it was a human skull, almost jade-like in quality, exuding an indescribable and enigmatic aura. Clearly, the owner of this skull must have been extraordinary in life. Just then, a surge of divine sense fluctuations suddenly transmitted into Lin Jing's mind. Save me. Hearing the psychic call, Lin Jing's eyebrows immediately furrowed. Is this someone? Lin Jing thought to himself while a sense of vigilance instantly arose. Whoever could appear here was no ordinary person. At the same time, Lin Jing also remembered something. Something a senior had entrusted to him before leaving. In this desert, there is a remnant soul spirit. No matter what it says, do not believe it, and remember to stay away from it. That was what the senior had instructed Lin Jing, although at the time the situation was urgent and the senior didn't elaborate further. Thinking of this, Lin Jing's frown deepened. Could it be that this voice transmitting to me is that remnant soul spirit? Lin Jing couldn't help but mutter to himself. After hesitating for a moment, Lin Jing decided it was best to bypass this area for now. Since the senior had already warned him, it meant that this remnant soul spirit was extremely troublesome and very likely to pose a threat to him. With this thought, Lin Jing turned around and was about to leave. However, seeing Lin Jing planning to leave, the divine sense transmission came again. Fellow Taoist. Save me. Surely fellow Taoist also wants to get out. I have a method out. The transmission was intermittent, indicating that the person behind this transmission was extremely weak at the moment and had no potential to threaten him. Hearing this, Lin Jing stopped in his tracks but did not approach. I am trapped in a water pool. As long as fellow Taoist saves me out, I will certainly repay you heavily. Seeing that Lin Jing was not moving forward, the divine sense transmission continued to speak. Hearing this, Lin Jing then turned around and left the oasis. This oasis he could not go to just yet. Seeing Lin Jing intending to leave, the divine sense transmission seemed somewhat agitated and hurriedly transmitted again. Fellow Taoist, I can swear by my soul spirit that as long as you rescue me, I assure you, I will not be of harm to the fellow Taoist and will help the fellow Taoist escape this immortal crossing island. Otherwise, I shall surely perish under the heavenly tribulation. The voice was broken and intermittent, growing fainter as Lin Jing moved away. It was as though the person transmitting the sound was indeed weak to the point of being on the brink of soul spirit dispersion. Nevertheless, the person's daring to swear by their soul spirit made Lin Jing somewhat skeptical. Because to swear by the soul spirit was not merely talk. If one were to break such a soul oath, the power of the heavenly tribulation they faced would double, dooming them to a terrible death under it. Lin Jing hesitated only for a moment before continuing to leave the area. Had it not been for the prior warning from Elder Yuan, Lin Jing might really have considered going in to check the situation. But with Elder Yuan's warning in mind, Lin Jing naturally wouldn't be so reckless. To leave, you must pass through the pond. Seeing that Lin Jing was actually leaving, the final part of the transmission from the soul spirit seemed to expend the last bit of its power and arrived at Lin Jing's ears extremely weak, almost inaudible. This time, Lin Jing didn't stop, continuing to walk outward. The soul spirit transmitted no more messages. After leaving, Lin Jing did not go far. Instead, he re-entered the storm, once again entering the system space amidst the rolling yellow sand. Upon entering the system space, Lin Jing began meditating again to restore his spiritual power. Similarly, after 6 hours passed, Lin Jing's spiritual power was fully restored. He was half doubtful, half believing in the words of that soul spirit. It had said, to leave one must pass through the pond. Frankly, Lin Jing was rather disinclined to believe it. But what if? Lin Jing had to explore it by himself. To say explore by himself actually meant to utilize the observation mode of the system space, to delve in and observe thoroughly. With such a powerful system function, of course, he would use it if he could. Then, Lin Jing exited the system space, erected a spiritual shield, and reappeared in the midst of the storm. Once out, Lin Jing changed direction and once more headed towards the oasis. After walking out of the sandy area and moving some distance, feeling it was sufficiently safe, Lin Jing entered the system space again. Enter observation mode. After entering the system space, Lin Jing immediately activated observation mode. Shortly after, the scene before Lin Jing's eyes began to blur and change, and soon he found himself observing the outside world. Next, Lin Jing controlled the observational perspective, probing towards the oasis ahead. This oasis, when spoken of, was not very large. As the observation perspective advanced, Lin Jing noticed many skeletons on the ground. Like the jade-like skull Lin Jing had encountered before, several more were at the edge of this pond. Clearly, these individuals had been extremely powerful in life, but had met their end here. Lin Jing didn't concern himself with these skeletons, instead directing the observation perspective deeper into the pond. The waters of the pond were crystal clear. Even underwater vision was hardly affected. Lin Jing changed direction, exploring beneath the pond. Quickly, Lin Jing discovered something unusual. At the depths of the pond, two skeletons sat cross-legged. One of the skeletons had dim lights flickering in its eye sockets, radiating faint glimmers. If nothing was amiss, this would likely be the person who had transmitted the messages. The other skeleton, also seated cross-legged on the ground, had an enigmatic box on its lap, round on top and square at the base. This box was very familiar to Lin Jing, because within the round pattern on the box, one could vaguely make out the character Lin. Lin Jing was startled the moment he saw the secret box. Afterwards, he controlled the observation angle, continuing to approach. He didn't stop until he was close to the secret box. Then, Lin Jing started to carefully observe the patterns on the box. After a period of meticulous observation, Lin Jing finally confirmed that this secret box was exactly the same as the one Senior Han had brought to him before. This, too, was a bloodline inheritance box of the Lin family. Moreover, despite an unknown number of years, the box was undamaged, with its patterns and designs still clearly visible. Lin Jing then pulled back the viewpoint to look at the two sets of skeletal remains. The cultivator with the secret box placed upon him had died an unknown time ago. His bones were different from those outside, snow-white and translucent like crystal. The other, seated cross-legged and facing him, was the one with a hazy light glowing in its eye sockets. This skeleton was of jade-like quality, without any impurities, even purer than the ones beside the water pool outside. And, at the eyebrow center of this jade-like skeleton, there was a black nail about 2 inches long, piercing through the skull and into the head. It even nailed the flickering and hazy soul spirit within the bones, leaving it forever unable to escape. At this time, the soul spirit inside the skull was barely glowing, apparently running out of energy and on the verge of dissipation. The one with the secret box, whose bones were crystal clear, was very likely an ancestor of the Lin family. As for the other, Lin Jing wasn't sure. That is, the skeleton with the glowing soul light in the eye sockets. Lin Jing was now certain that this soul light was definitely the surviving soul mentioned by the senior. Although it was sitting opposite the Lin family ancestor, it was not necessarily true that they were on good terms. It was also very likely that they were enemies. For safety's sake, after thoughtful consideration, Lin Jing decided not to take any risks. Because this surviving soul, in life, could very well have been a cultivator who endured tribulation or was at the peak of the Mahayana realm. Having cultivated to such a level, they would possess all manner of terrifying and strange methods. These methods were unfathomable, and Lin Jing, even if he tried, could not imagine them, naturally leaving him unprepared. Even now, when only a faint soul was left, about to be extinguished, Lin Jing dared not act rashly. For his own safety, Lin Jing still decided to wait, preferably until after the surviving soul had dissipated, before he would take action. Even if the secret box was incredibly tempting to him. However, all these could be set aside for the moment. What he cared about most was actually another matter. It was about the trial grounds, that is, whether the exit to leave Immortal Crossing Island was indeed inside this water pool. Or, perhaps, there was some formation inside the pool that concealed the exit. because when Lin Jing was observing from outside earlier, the dense skeletal remains around the water pool made him feel something was off. There were skeletal remains elsewhere, but compared to those near the pool, they were far fewer. Lin Jing felt. The surviving soul didn't seem to have lied to him in this regard. It seemed that to leave, he would indeed have to go through this pool. Then, Lin Jing controlled the observation mode and began exploring inside the water pool. However, after a complete exploration, he found nothing. Out of options, Lin Jing could only leave the pool for the time being, using the observation mode. After leaving the area of the water pool, Lin Jing began to explore within the woods on its edge. This exploration was done with great care, even including the ground beneath. After half an hour of thorough searching, Lin Jing had almost turned the place upside down, but still came up empty-handed. In the end, Lin Jing, with no other choice, exited observation mode. After exiting observation mode, Lin Jing sat cross-legged inside the alchemy room, contemplating how to enter that water pool to search for clues. After pondering for a long time, Lin Jing realized that aside from taking a risk and entering the pool, he had no other method to find the clues to leave. The key point was that Lin Jing couldn't gamble with his life. The surviving soul's former cultivation was too strong, and Lin Jing didn't trust that it lacked other means. After his experience with the Zhang family patriarch, Lin Jing had come to understand something. That is, regardless of who it was, they all cherished their lives immensely. Especially those who had lived longer, they valued their lives even more. Just like the Zhang family patriarch, in his drive to survive, he did not hesitate to fall into the demonic path, and was even unscrupulous towards his own family members. The surviving soul currently was at this stage. It was about to disappear. Moreover, the senior had specifically warned him that this soul belonged to the kind who were full of tricks and not to be trusted. Before this, the surviving soul had told him so much, and Lin Jing suspected that it was trying to lure him over, perhaps wanting to be freed by him. Or maybe it intended to seize his body. Lin Jing thought, even if he were to enter the water pool, he must wait until after the soul spirit was extinguished. The surviving soul seemed like it could not hold on much longer, and Lin Jing decided to wait a bit longer to see whether the surviving soul was truly as weak as it seemed. Although Lin Jing wanted to leave, he could still afford to wait a bit longer at this point. After formulating a plan, Lin Jing directly bypassed the pool and continued to explore other areas. After a period of exploration, Lin Jing finally confirmed that this pool was the center of the desert. During this time, Lin Jing also finally understood why this pool was the way out. The phantom soul had indeed not deceived him. When the night of the full moon came, moonlight sprinkled onto the surface of the water, and the pool began to change. It was also when Lin Jing was investigating the aura of the phantom soul that he discovered the changes in the pool. At that moment, moonlight sprinkled over the pool, reflecting the moon in the sky, and the moon's reflection in the water grew increasingly bright. Eventually, it even reflected above the pool. In the space above the pool, a peculiar entrance with a teleportation function was formed. When Lin Jing saw this scene, he was stunned on the spot. He hadn't expected the entrance to be like this. Lin Jing could even see some of the scenes inside the entrance. Inside, it seemed like the outside desert, a place ravaged by fierce winds. However, due to the raging winds inside and the sky filled with yellow sand, many things were obscured from sight. Lin Jing didn't see much, but what he saw was enough. Now that Lin Jing knew this was the entrance to the trial grounds, all he had to do next was wait. He would wait for the phantom soul to completely vanish before he would try to venture into the trial grounds. During this time of exploration, Lin Jing also discovered that the light emitted by the phantom soul grew dimmer and dimmer. Clearly, it was about to give out. So Lin Jing waited just outside the oasis, waiting for the disappearance of the phantom soul. While waiting in boredom, upon seeing the sandstorm, he suddenly thought of the 7 refinement body forging technique he had acquired from the storage bag of the Wukai immortal. Lin Jing had glanced over that technique a bit. It included methods of tempering the body using various harsh environments. And the sandstorm in the desert was just such a harsh environment, perfect for practicing the 7 refinement body forging technique. Moreover, lately, Lin Jing needed to conserve his time in the system space, meaning he had to spend most of his time in the desert outside of it. Since there was no spiritual energy in the desert and he couldn't practice other spells, he might as well spend the time practicing the 7 refinement body forging technique. Thinking this, Lin Jing entered the system space, took out the 7 refinement body forging technique, and began the first step of training. Time flew by quickly, and a month passed. When Lin Jing took the time to investigate again, he incidentally discovered that the phantom soul within the bones had disappeared without a trace. Lin Jing then conducted a meticulous exploration and finally confirmed this fact. After the phantom soul dissipated, Lin Jing did not rush forward. Instead, he continued to return to the turbulent sandstorm. Because Lin Jing had not witnessed how the phantom soul had dissipated, he was not entirely sure it had truly gone. So for now, Lin Jing decided to continue waiting. Anyway, he was about to reach the 8th level of foundation establishment. Lin Jing decided that once he broke through to the 8th level, he would go back to the pool for another look. Subsequently, Lin Jing left the oasis and continued to enter the sandstorm area to practice the 7 refinement body forging technique. Time is like flowing water, fleeting in an instant. Quickly, another month passed. In this desert of sand, dancing wildly in the sky, a person suddenly appeared out of nowhere with bronze-colored skin that made him look very strong. He just stood in the midst of the fierce wind, completely defenseless. The violent winds, laden with yellow sand and gravel, struck the person's body, but he did not react at all. This suddenly appearing person was Lin Jing, who had just advanced to the 8th layer of foundation establishment. Lin Jing looked at his strong physique, which had caused the clothes he had prepared to stretch almost to the point of tearing. He couldn't help but smile wryly. He hadn't expected that after practicing the 7 refinement body forging technique, the muscles on his body would uncontrollably experience an explosive increase. Lin Jing's current appearance was that of an extremely strong man, vastly different from his former self. However, the benefits of practicing the 7 refinement body forging technique were evident. Now, Lin Jing didn't need to use a spiritual shield at all in the desert. He just stood there, and the sandstorm could not harm him. This saved him a lot of trouble. Now that it had been a whole month since the phantom soul had dissipated, it was time for Lin Jing to explore further. However, he always remembered the words entrusted to him by his senior. For this exploration, Lin Jing naturally would not go unprepared. This time, he also took out the gourd left behind after he had killed Liu Yuan. Lin Jing had checked the gourd again a few days before. No matter what methods Lin Jing used, the gourd remained unresponsive. However, Lin Jing knew one of the gourd's characteristics. It could allow the soul spirit to attach to it. He took out the gourd because he was interested in this particular feature of the gourd. If the phantom soul wasn't dead, perhaps he might be able to rely on this gourd to accomplish a great feat. After preparing everything, Lin Jing once again headed towards the oasis. As he was about to approach the oasis, Lin Jing spoke out, summoning the system. System, activate enhancement possession. As Lin Jing's voice fell, a system prompt transmitted within his mind. Ding. System prompt. Enhancement possession activated successfully, deducting 5 harvest points, lasts for 5 minutes. After 5 minutes, 1 harvest point will be deducted every minute. Subsequently, Lin Jing felt the strength of his divine sense improve significantly more than before. Moreover, the 40% divine sense enhancement that came with the enhancement possession caused Lin Jing's range of divine sense to instantly expand considerably. Having done all this, Lin Jing entered the oasis and, for the first time, proceeded towards the pool within its jungles. This time, no telepathic messages came through. Passing through the jungle surrounding the pool, Lin Jing arrived at the edge of the water. This time, being physically present at the edge of the pool, the sight of the skeletons there was somewhat different from what he had seen in observation mode. The atmosphere here was mixed. Each skeleton retained a trace of its former life essence that could never be eroded away. This place was like a burial ground, masking the once glorious lives of these individuals. Looking at the bones on the ground, Lin Jing was affected by the atmosphere and inevitably experienced a touch of sentiment. After a moment, Lin Jing calmed his emotions. Then, with determined eyes, he looked again at the pool and began to walk towards it. After observing for some time, Lin Jing knew that the pool harbored no danger. The most dangerous thing had always been that remnant soul. Lin Jing directly stepped into the pool, and surprisingly, the water was exceedingly cool, a rarity in this desert. Pumping his spiritual power, Lin Jing felt around, and, seeing that his body exhibited no abnormalities, he then swam towards the middle of the pool. The pool was roughly only about 10 meters deep, not very deep at all. Before long, Lin Jing had already reached the bottom of the pool. He first arrived next to those two skeletons to carefully observe them. Then, in the eye sockets of the skeleton that had previously housed the remnant soul, no more light shone. The nail was still embedded there. This nail was completely black, with cloud patterns swirling around it. And at the end of the nail was a small carving that looked very much like a skull. This nail was clearly not an ordinary magical treasure. In fact, it was obvious without thinking that a nail that could pin a remnant soul for such a long time was naturally not ordinary. After closely inspecting it for a while, Lin Jing did not remove the nail, but instead turned and went over to another skeleton that looked like it was made of glazed material. On the leg of the skeleton lay the bloodline inheritance box. However, the owner of this glazed skeleton had evidently been dead for a long time. One could only faintly sense some of the formidable aura of the owner from the bones. Next, Lin Jing reached out and directly picked up the box. After securing the box, Lin Jing did not linger, taking the box with him and swimming straight back to shore. During this time, no accidents occurred. It was only after safely returning to the shore that Lin Jing truly breathed a sigh of relief. It seemed the remnant soul had indeed dissipated. Once Lin Jing was ashore, he used his spiritual power to evaporate the water from his body, and then picked up the box to examine it closely. After scrutinizing it for a while, Lin Jing nodded slightly. The box was exactly the same as the one Senior Han had given him before. Lin Jing then, unable to wait, set the box down and immediately took out the flawless sword, cut his finger, and then let the fresh blood drip onto the pattern atop the box. As Lin Jing's blood dripped onto the box, the pattern also began to emit light, gradually growing stronger and stronger. Lin Jing's blood slowly covered the entire pattern on the box. With a click, the box opened on its own. Lin Jing looked inside the box and directly saw the jade slip inscribed with Lin family's alchemy Dao. This was yet another set of Lin family's alchemy Dao, leaving Lin Jing somewhat bewildered for a moment. The box given to him by Senior Han already contained a set of Lin family's alchemy Dao, and now here was another set. Moreover, this jade slip was exactly identical to the previous one. Could it be that Lin family's alchemy Dao has both an upper and lower part? Lin Jing couldn't help but mutter to himself. Although Lin Jing had looked through the previous alchemy Dao, he hadn't read much of it. Every time he just started, he would be struck by a splitting headache. As a result, up until now, Lin Jing hadn't been able to practice the alchemy techniques written on it. He had thought it was simply because his divine sense wasn't strong enough and had planned to wait until he reached the golden core stage to try practicing the alchemy techniques. He hadn't started the practice yet, and here came another set of Lin family's alchemy Dao. Thereafter, Lin Jing took the jade slip out of the box. It was only then that he noticed there were other jade slips underneath the Lin family's alchemy Dao, and there was more than one. Following that, Lin Jing took out the other jade slips one by one. Underneath the Lin family's alchemy Dao was a blank jade slip. Underneath the blank jade slip were two cultivation techniques. One was named Dao Transformation Divinity Technique. Another one was the Overlord Divine Physique. From the names, one appears to be a cultivation technique related to divine sense, and the other seems to be a physical cultivation technique. Lin Jing set aside these two cultivation techniques for the time being and took out another Lin family alchemy jade slip from his storage bag. He wanted to carefully compare the two jade slips and see what made them special. However, just as he took out this jade slip, the other Lin family alchemy jade slip that he had placed to the side reacted. The jade slip began to emit a bright light and then floated in the air. The one in Lin Jing's hand that he had just taken out did the same. It hovered, emitting light, and slipped from Lin Jing's grasp. Under Lin Jing's watchful eye, the two jade slips combined, merging slowly together. This process didn't take long. Soon, the two jade slips had fused into one. Afterward, the light faded, and the jade slip fell back into Lin Jing's hand. Driven by curiosity, Lin Jing picked up the jade slip again and observed it anew. However, after a thorough inspection, Lin Jing found the surface of the jade slip seemed unchanged. As Lin Jing puzzled over this, he suddenly caught something out of the corner of his eye. The other blank jade slip seemed to have changed. Lin Jing placed the Lin family alchemy jade slip aside and picked up the blank one. This previously blank jade slip now bore a line of small characters. Descendant of the Lin family, the bloodline has been unlocked. This line of characters appeared on the blank jade slip. After pondering for a moment, Lin Jing, like before, cut open his finger and dropped his blood onto the jade slip. Lin Jing knew that this jade slip must have been left by an ancestor of the Lin family and likely contained some secrets. When the fresh blood touched the jade slip, it slowly seeped into it, and the jade slip emitted a dazzling white light. Then, the jade slip turned into a beam of light and shot toward Lin Jing. Frightened by the approaching beam, Lin Jing instinctively tried to dodge. But the beam was too fast, and before he could move out of the way, it plunged into his sea of consciousness. However, this action by the beam did not trigger any system warnings, nor did the protective phantom of the divine phoenix appear. After the beam of light entered Lin Jing's sea of consciousness, his own consciousness was pulled into it as well. Now, inside Lin Jing's sea of consciousness, an elder appeared. The elder looked ordinary, yet carried an extraordinary presence. Within Lin Jing's sea of consciousness, Lin Jing regarded the elder before him, and the elder also looked back at Lin Jing, his eyes filled with disbelief. Descendant of the Lin family, how did you come by the bloodline inheritance box? After scrutinizing Lin Jing, the elder hastily asked, "Who are you?" Lin Jing inquired respectfully, not sure of the elder's identity. The aura the elder possessed suggested that he was extraordinary in life, probably having reached the pinnacle of cultivation. You must have guessed by now, I too am from the Lin family. Since you were able to open the bloodline inheritance box and have access to this jade slip, you must certainly be of my Lin family. And I am one of your ancestors." Before Lin Jing could respond, the elder continued speaking. "Immortal Crossing Island is no place for the ordinary. I brought the bloodline inheritance box there. Where did you find this bloodline inheritance box? Also, how fares our Lin family now?" As he spoke, the elder's form began to waver, his expression pained as he said, "Back then, I was deceived by my closest friend and enticed to bring the Lin family's alchemy techniques to Immortal Crossing Island. Regrettably, I died there. As the culprit who failed our family, my death was well-deserved. However, one part of the Lin family alchemy techniques that I brought with me was lost on Immortal Crossing Island. If these two parts cannot be reunited, the Lin family alchemy techniques can never be cultivated. Can you tell me, how is the Lin family doing now? Without the family's alchemy techniques, has the Lin family fallen?" Regret filled Lin Jing as he saw the distorted figure of the elder in pain, but he nonetheless had to convey the truth. Lin Jing bowed and said to the elder, "Great Ancestor, please calm yourself, and I will explain everything to you gradually." Listening to Lin Jing's words, the Lin family ancestor's eyes sparkled with relief, and his form slowly steadied. "Go on." Having calmed down, the Lin family ancestor spoke to Lin Jing. "May I ask, Great Ancestor, what state are you in now? Are you a residual soul?" Lin Jing asked the Lin family ancestor. The Lin family ancestor sighed and said, "My physical body has long since perished, and what remains here is just a residual soul sealed within the jade slip, the obsession of my true self. Since you could open this jade slip, it means the Lin family must be all right. My wish is fulfilled, and I don't think it will be long before I dissipate." The Lin family ancestor looked at Lin Jing, contented. Lin Jing felt somewhat awkward, but after pondering for a while, he decided not to keep the truth from the Lin family ancestor and chose to reveal it. "Actually, I wasn't previously aware of any Lin family. Lin Jing had just spoken this sentence when the old ancestor of the Lin family across from him had clearly become somewhat staggered. To prevent the old ancestor of the Lin family from becoming as uncontrollable as he had been earlier in his excitement, Lin Jing hurriedly said to him, "Old ancestor, please don't get excited. Let me finish telling you." After that, the old ancestor of the Lin family managed to calm his emotions and then nodded his head. Since that previous sentence, the remnant soul of the Lin family's old ancestor had wanted to ask something. However, following Lin Jing's reminder, he still resisted the impulse to ask. Then, Lin Jing continued, "I was born in the Nanming domain, in a sect called the Qingyuan Sword Sect, and I was just a minor spirit farmer. Before this, I had never heard of the Lin family." And so, Lin Jing began to recount his own life story. Of course, Lin Jing did not delve too deeply, merely providing a general introduction to his experiences, and only went so far as to mention how he obtained the secret box from Senior Han, which contained some past events of the Lin family. Even a matter of the transmission, Lin Jing merely mentioned it in passing. However, upon hearing these things, the remnant soul of the Lin family's old ancestor underwent a tremendous change in expression. "Are you saying that this place is actually still Immortal Crossing Island?" "Yes, old ancestor," Lin Jing nodded and said. However, after this sentence, the old ancestor of the Lin family seemed to have heard a thunderbolt from a clear sky, and it took him a long time to react. It was not until a good while later that the old ancestor of the Lin family came to his senses. Afterward, the entire person had remained silent for quite some time before finally lifting his head again. At this moment, there seemed to be a kind of irrepressible desolation in his eyes. "Even our Lin family has ultimately declined," the old ancestor of the Lin family murmured to himself. Thinking back then, at this point, the old ancestor of the Lin family's eyes dimmed, and he did not continue any further. Seeing him in such a state, Lin Jing couldn't help but become curious about the past of the Lin family, and quickly asked, "Old ancestor, could you tell me about the Lin family's affairs?" The old ancestor of the Lin family looked up at Lin Jing, nodded his head, and then began to speak. "Regardless, you are a descendant of our Lin family. It is indeed right for you to know about our Lin family's past. Our Lin family is an ancient alchemy lineage dynasty that has survived for millions of years." Following that, the old ancestor of the Lin family began to recount the past to Lin Jing. However, his first sentence already shocked Lin Jing deeply. When Lin Jing encountered Lin's alchemy techniques, he indeed thought that the Lin family possessed the inheritance of alchemy techniques, but he never expected that the Lin family was actually a lineage that traced back to the ancients. One must know, the ancient alchemy path could even increase the success rate of pure elixir medicine. Leaving other things aside, just considering the inheritance that spanned millions of years, the Lin family was destined to be extraordinary. After the narration of the old ancestor of the Lin family, Lin Jing also gradually came to understand the full picture of the Lin family, even including the decline of the Lin family. The Lin family had existed since ancient times, and back then, they were merely a small alchemy family, quite inconspicuous within that glorious ancient era. It was precisely because of the Lin family's insignificance that they, always low profile and hidden from the world, managed to survive the catastrophe that swept across the entire cultivation world during the ancient times. After the catastrophe, many long-standing top-level sects and powerhouse families declined, whereas small, hidden families like the Lin family were preserved and passed down from generation to generation. Maybe it was due to envy from the heavens, or perhaps limitations imposed by the rules of nature and earth, but neither the imperial dynasties of the world nor those super sect families could eternally thrive and not deteriorate. The Lin family was naturally no exception. In the times that followed, the Lin family also emerged to become a superpower and had experienced several falls, returning to being an inconspicuous small family again. But no matter what, the Lin family was always able to maintain an unbroken lineage. Until 10,000 years ago, the Lin family truly encountered a crisis of extinction. Perhaps it was because the Lin family had existed for too long and incurred the wrath of the heavens, which brought down a heavenly calamity upon them. Within less than 1,000 years, the Lin family rapidly declined from an extremely powerful clan. This time, it was even more severe than before. Those long-renowned and top-tier cultivators of the Lin family either went mad from practicing their cultivation techniques or unfortunately perished while out and about. And those extraordinarily talented prodigies were the same, either dying at the hands of enemies or mysteriously disappearing. Only those disciples of mediocre aptitude happened to survive quite well. The Lin family searched for all kinds of methods, but to no avail. During the decline of the Lin family, this old ancestor encountered betrayal by a friend and was ambushed by his friend in collusion with outsiders, who wanted to seize the Lin family's alchemy techniques. He resisted desperately, but in the fiercest moment of the battle, a spatial disturbance was triggered, and by accident, he fell into this immortal crossing island together with his enemies. From then on, he was unable to leave. Originally, with the Lin family already severely weakened and lacking the alchemy inheritance, the entire Lin family thus declined from that point on. Until Lin Jing's generation, the Lin family could be said to have become completely extinct. After hearing this, Lin Jing fell silent for a while before hurriedly consoling. Old Ancestor, you really don't need to be sad. There's no such thing as a family that can continue on forever in this world. The fact that the Lin family has been able to pass down its legacy for millions of years is already incredibly remarkable. The old ancestor of the Lin family lifted his head to look at Lin Jing, then sighed. Alas, perhaps this is the will of the heavens. Having said that, the old ancestor of the Lin family's aura suddenly strengthened as he said to Lin Jing, "The Lin family can be dispensed with, but as the sole inheritor of our Lin family's bloodline, I must ensure you are sent out." "Senior ancestor, do you know the way out?" Lin Jing asked, puzzled. The Lin family's senior ancestor then spoke up. "After I entered Immortal Crossing Island and sealed the enemy, I pondered for a long time and finally found a way through the trials. As long as one passes the trial, they can leave Immortal Crossing Island. Come, open your mind, and I will pass all these methods on to you." Hearing this, a sudden start jolted Lin Jing's heart. He abruptly remembered the dissipating remnant soul. He then spoke up, asking the Lin family senior ancestor, "Senior ancestor, I encountered 2 sets of dry bones at the bottom of the pool. One of them had a black nail in its forehead. What is that about?" Upon hearing this, the Lin family senior ancestor asked Lin Jing, "Within those sealed dry bones, was there still a soul light shining? If there is soul light, remember you must not remove that black nail under any circumstances." Lin Jing shook his head, saying, "No. When I first arrived here, the soul light was already very weak. But before that, I had already received news of that remnant soul, so I waited until the soul light disappeared before I dared to go down into this pool." "Are you certain that the soul light has dissipated?" the Lin family senior ancestor asked again. Lin Jing nodded, saying, "Yes, senior ancestor." "That's good." The Lin family senior ancestor sighed in relief. "That person is an enemy of our Lin family, and what he cultivated was the Tao transformation divinity technique. With this cultivation technique, a soul spirit is extremely hard to extinguish. That's why I used a soul sealing nail to seal him. It seems that even the most unyielding soul spirits cannot withstand the passage of time. Now that he's been extinguished, that spirit-suppressing nail is a rare treasure. You can take it with you at any time. If you're still worried, you can just leave it be." "By the way, senior ancestor," Lin Jing continued to ask, "I once obtained a gourd magical treasure which actually allowed a remnant soul to attach to it. I wonder if you have heard of such a thing." The Lin family's senior ancestor first paused, then responded, "The gourd you mentioned might be a special Tao treasure. It should have exceeded the category of magical treasures. Unfortunately, I am merely a stubborn will. Otherwise, it would have really been possible to attach myself to that gourd and have you take me out." Having said that, the Lin family senior ancestor gave a bitter smile. At that moment, Lin Jing saw the figure of the Lin family's senior ancestor, who seemed solid at first, becoming a lot more ethereal. The Lin family's senior ancestor looked down at his own body, then continued speaking to Lin Jing. "Time is almost up. I am about to dissipate. Now, open your mind. I will pass on the method to leave this place to you, and when the time comes, you can pass the trial and leave Immortal Crossing Island by following my method." However, after the Lin family's senior ancestor finished speaking, Lin Jing made no move, nor did he open his mind. Lin Jing looked at the increasingly ethereal figure of the Lin family's senior ancestor, who was about to dissipate, and said, "Senior ancestor, is this method to leave very complicated?" The Lin family's senior ancestor nodded and said, "It is indeed somewhat complex, mainly because I don't have much time left now, and I can't explain it to you in detail. It can only be passed on to you in this way." "Oh," Lin Jing uttered, still without any movement. And in Lin Jing's sea of consciousness, the phantom image of the Lin family senior ancestor was becoming fainter and fainter. In Lin Jing's sea of consciousness, the two of them just looked at each other. From beginning to end, Lin Jing had not opened his mind, and the expression on the Lin family's senior ancestor's face became increasingly unsightly. Moments later, the Lin family's senior ancestor looked at Lin Jing, his eyes filled with appreciation, and then he said, "How did you find out about me?" But Lin Jing did not answer, instead directly asking, "The remnant soul that entered my sea of consciousness, it has no ability to harm me, right?" The reason Lin Jing made such a judgment was that when the remnant soul entered, it did not trigger a counterattack from the Divine Phoenix Mark, nor was there system warning. "So, you pretended to be my Lin family senior ancestor, try to lure me into releasing control of my mind to take over my body, and then to remove that spirit-suppressing nail. I was almost deceived by you." At that moment, in Lin Jing's sea of consciousness, the image of the Lin family's senior ancestor suddenly transformed, turning into another old man with a sinister gaze. "You're very smart, partly right. Indeed, with that spirit-suppressing nail in place, there's no way for me to escape, and only by removing that nail can I truly be free. However, you shouldn't have opened the Lin family's bloodline inheritance box." The sinister-looking old man suddenly cracked a smile. Lin Failing really thought he could get my Tao transformation divinity technique that easily, and even harbored the delusion of putting my Tao transformation divinity technique into the Lin family's bloodline inheritance box. He's really too naive. The elder mentioned by Lin Failing must be the Lin family ancestor he had just envisioned. Within the Tao transformation divinity technique, there's always been a fragment of my soul spirit. Having said that, he smiled and said to Lin Jing, "It's all thanks to you for opening that secret box. Otherwise, this fragment of my soul spirit would not have been able to come out. You're at the Foundation establishment stage, yet you've landed on Immortal Crossing Island. It seems that this is the will of heaven." Ha! The more the elder spoke, the more excited he became. It seemed that being sealed for so long had been torturous for him. However, Lin Jing's face did not show the slightest hint of panic. "If I hadn't gone to remove the spirit-suppressing nail, how would you have escaped your predicament? As soon as you released me, the extraction of the spirit-suppressing nail had already begun. By now, it should be almost done, right?" The elder casually smiled and said, "Otherwise, why do you think I told you so much? It was all to buy time. So what are you planning now? Are you going to seize my body or what?" Lin Jing asked, looking at the elder. The elder scoffed and said, "Seize your body? Why would I seize your body? At our level of cultivation, as long as the soul spirit is not destroyed, one can always condense a body. Now that my soul spirit is severely damaged, I just need to recuperate it, and then I will completely recover. However, speaking of which, I must thank you for that, Gord. I didn't expect you to have such a Tao treasure. If you weren't a remnant of the Lin family, I might have even considered taking you as my disciple." Lin Jing fell silent for a moment, then spoke again. "Your soul spirit has already possessed the gourd, haven't you? Aren't you afraid that I will destroy your soul spirit?" Trying to intimidate me? The elder couldn't help but snort in disdain. Indeed, I have possessed the gourd, and I also know that you haven't refined it at all. Then he looked at Lin Jing with contempt. With your current cultivation and the means you possess, you can't do anything to that gourd, let alone my soul spirit. If you don't believe me, you can try. After saying these things, when the elder looked at Lin Jing again, his eyes were filled with amusement. Now my soul spirit resides in your gourd and is extremely weak. I like to see how you're going to destroy me. If you can't, be careful of your own life when I recover. Having finished speaking, the remaining soul spirit completely dissipated from Lin Jing's divine sense. And Lin Jing also withdrew from his divine sense. When he opened his eyes again, Lin Jing was by the water's edge. At this moment, everything was as usual. The secret box, the jade slips, and the gourd were still placed beside him. However, the entire gourd had turned completely black, clearly showing that the elder's soul spirit had attached itself to it. Lin Jing's divine sense reached out, and he could distinctly feel the extremely weakened strength of the soul spirit. Then, Lin Jing looked around. 3 jade slips lay by his side, and on the ground next to them were 2 drops of blood that had not yet dried. There were only 3 jade slips in total. There was no 4th blank jade slip. Clearly, the elder had not lied. Within the Dao transformation divinity technique, there truly was a strand of his spirit that had influenced Lin Jing's perception upon opening the secret box. And thus, he saw that non-existent blank jade slip. What followed was a series of events. At this moment, Lin Jing's divine sense probed towards the bottom of the pool again. At the bottom of the water pool, the 2 dry skeletons were still sitting cross-legged. Only, the soul-sealing nail had already fallen. Now that the soul-sealing nail had fallen, the fragment had released the elder's soul spirit, which had hid inside his own gourd. Then, Lin Jing picked up the gourd and shook it in his hand. Yet the soul spirit attached to it showed no reaction. Obviously, it was extremely weak and trying to find a way to recover. Naturally, Lin Jing wasn't about to let it recover so easily. In fact, Lin Jing had been on alert ever since that elder, pretending to be an ancestor of the Lin family, mentioned opening up his divine sense. Then, Lin Jing tested the waters. But the elder was very good at disguising himself and didn't reveal any flaws. After that, Lin Jing brought up the gourd. Based on the little information Lin Jing had received before, he surmised that this soul spirit must have been incredibly powerful in life. But even when Lin Jing first arrived, he was already very weak, and even if he wasn't exactly as Lin Jing had seen, he might not have been far from it. Otherwise, he would not have let Lin Jing leave so easily. For Lin Jing, he had always used the gourd as bait. What Lin Jing was most afraid of was the possession by this remaining soul spirit, which was why he immediately retreated the first time he heard the soul spirit's transmission. Even though the soul spirit was very weak at that time, but since he had been so powerful in life, Lin Jing had to be cautious. That's why he only dared to go into the water after the remaining soul spirit had dissipated. But even so, the cunning soul spirit was just feigning death. However, there's no need to worry now. As long as the soul spirit has taken possession of the gourd, its life is in Lin Jing's hands. There's no way, no matter what, he would never expect that Lin Jing possessed a system space capable of grinding away any living being. Then, Lin Jing picked up the secret box and the jade slipped from the ground. After that, with a gourd in hand, he silently recited in his heart, "Enter the system space." Instantly, the scene before Lin Jing's eyes changed, and he arrived inside the system space. It was at this moment that the system warning suddenly sounded. Warning! A special spiritual body has entered the system space, initiating eradication immediately. The soul remnants that were originally planning to recover suddenly felt a sense of extreme fear wash over them. This feeling of terror was even stronger than facing the most brutal life and death crisis. No longer able to remain calm, the soul then thrust out from the gourd. "What is this place?" However, before the words had completely left its mouth, that feeling of extreme terror had already descended upon it. Lin Jing saw that the soul was being disassembled bit by bit. At this time, the remnant soul, looking at its own spiritual body, could no longer maintain its previous arrogance, and sheer panic was written all over its face. "What is this? And who on earth are you?" No. The disintegration happened at an incredibly fast pace, and in just a moment, the remnant soul had been completely dissolved. Lin Jing then looked at the gourd in his hand, which had now returned to its previous state. He wasn't reassured yet, so he took the jade slips and the secret box in his hands again, to see if any remnants of the soul still existed. But this time, there were no more system prompts. After doing all this, Lin Jing directly exited the system space. Then, he plunged into the pond. Upon reaching the bottom of the pond, Lin Jing immediately saw the spirit-suppressing nail that had fallen to the ground. After that, Lin Jing reached out and picked up the spirit-suppressing nail. But just at that moment, something changed suddenly. A powerful force of the soul spirit burst forth from within the spirit-suppressing nail, attempting to rush into Lin Jing's divine sense. Suddenly, a fiery red soul light burst forth, and the image of the divine phoenix reappeared, emitting a strong glow, blocking the remnant soul from entering. At the same time, a system warning also sounded at this time. Warning! Within the defensive perimeter, someone is harboring lethal intentions towards the host. Please respond in a timely manner. This time, it wasn't a false alarm. Inside the spirit-suppressing nail was, indeed, another remnant soul. Or perhaps, this black nail wasn't a spirit-suppressing nail at all, but rather something like a Tao treasure that housed a soul spirit. Lin Jing gripped the spirit-suppressing nail tightly and once again entered the system space. This time, just like before, the remnant soul inside the spirit-suppressing nail had barely entered the system space when it felt something was wrong. It had barely thought to resist when it was outright obliterated by the system space. After that remnant soul was eradicated, the spirit-suppressing nail also changed. The shape of the nail remained unchanged, but what was originally a black nail turned into one with rainbow colors. Having extinguished the remnant soul hidden within the nail, Lin Jing was drenched in sweat. This remnant soul was too bizarre. So far, Lin Jing had encountered a total of 3 remnant souls. Why did this person have so many? This was something that Lin Jing truly couldn't understand. Then Lin Jing remembered the Tao transformation divinity technique housed in the secret box. It seemed that all the secrets lay within this cultivation technique. After resting for a while, Lin Jing once again went out of the system space. Next, he brought both of the skeletal remains from the bottom of the pond into the system space for a check. This time, there were no surprises. These 2 skeletal remains were indeed unproblematic. After that, he took the remains out again and returned them to their original places. Then, Lin Jing continued to search around the bottom of the pond for a while, and after finding no issues, he finally returned to the edge of the pond. Afterward, Lin Jing directly entered the system space, and without attending to anything else, started to study the Tao transformation divinity technique there. He wanted to understand what this technique was like and also to familiarize himself with it, to see if there were any other similar remnant souls around. Soon, several days passed, and Lin Jing had gained a preliminary understanding of the Tao transformation divinity technique. This Tao transformation divinity technique wasn't just any ordinary cultivation technique. It could strengthen the soul spirit and also split it, thus creating a unique and unparalleled avatar belonging to oneself. This avatar was closely connected to the original, but the 2 did not affect each other. In battle, the original could separate from the avatar at any time, catching the enemy off guard. However, after practicing the Tao transformation divinity technique, one could only split out one avatar. Moreover, the strength of the avatar was limited by the strength of the soul spirit split from the original. The stronger the soul spirit, the stronger the avatar would be. The lesser the soul spirit split off, the weaker the avatar's strength would be. This was a minor flaw of the technique, because if too much soul spirit was split off, the original would actually become quite vulnerable. The remnant soul hidden in the secret box on the technique was another function of the Tao transformation divinity technique. This kind of split remnant soul had no offensive power and could not pose a threat to anyone. After thoroughly understanding the technique, Lin Jing finally let out a sigh of relief. The remnant soul had finally been eliminated by him and no longer posed any threat. Although the Tao transformation divinity technique was formidable, it wasn't something Lin Jing could cultivate at the moment. The minimum requirement for its cultivation was also the golden core stage. Moreover, to differentiate and control the divided spirits used for controlling avatars, one would at least need the cultivation of the divinity transformation stage. Divinity transformation stage. Given Lin Jing's aptitude, even with the help of the system space, it was estimated that much time would be needed to reach it. Thus, after briefly understanding the Tao transformation divinity technique, Lin Jing set it aside and did not pay attention to it anymore. After putting away the Tao transformation divinity technique, Lin Jing took out the Lin family's pill Tao. Ever since merging it into one, Lin Jing had never opened it. Now, everything had been sorted out. He could now take it out and look at it in detail. Subsequently, Lin Jing directly sat cross-legged in the alchemy room within the system space, took out the jade slip of the Lin family's pill Tao, and then delved his divine sense into it. As soon as Lin Jing's divine sense entered it, he discovered some situations. Within this jade slip, there were actually some messages left behind by the ancestor of the Lin family. Descendants of the Lin family, the center of the Lin family, Lin failing here. Upon seeing this, Lin Jing knew that this was indeed the last words left by the true ancestor of the Lin family. Lin Jing then continued to read downward. To resolve the family's predicament, I had no choice but to seek an old friend from many years ago. Who would have thought? Lin Jing frowned and continued reading down until an hour later, when he finally finished the messages left by the ancestor of the Lin family. The rest of the last words were not much different from what the remnant soul had said. Its method of deceiving Lin Jing involved impersonating the position of the ancestor of the Lin family, with most of what was said being true. However, it was precisely because it was true that it was the most deceiving. Fortunately, Lin Jing was quite alert and maintained his vigilance, which prevented the remnant soul from succeeding. Apart from some information about the Lin family, the message left by the ancestor of the Lin family also surprisingly contained some information about the trial grounds. At the end, the ancestor of the Lin family had also attempted to enter the trial grounds and recorded some situations that he knew about inside the trial grounds as well. This took Lin Jing by surprise. Having the information about the trial grounds could save Lin Jing a lot of trouble. Lin Jing learned from the messages left by the ancestor of the Lin family that the trial grounds varied in difficulty according to each person's cultivation. Inside the trial grounds, spells are completely absent, and one must have extremely high body refinement cultivation and strong divine sense power. The trials within the trial grounds target both divine sense and physique. This was also why the ancestor of the Lin family had kept the Tao transformation divinity technique and the Overlord divine physique cultivation methods in the bloodline heritage secret box. And the time when this trial opens is only on the night of the full moon when moonlight shines on the pond. Each month, there is only such one opportunity. If failed, one will be teleported out and can only enter again the next full moon night to challenge it. Moreover, only by passing this trial can one leave the immortal crossing island. After understanding the rules of the trial grounds, Lin Jing first pondered for a while. After reflecting, he continued to review the Lin family's pill Tao. Now that the pill Tao had merged into one, when Lin Jing looked at it again, he no longer felt the intense dizziness from before. This time, Lin Jing spent a good half of the day reading it before reluctantly putting away the jade slip. After reviewing this pill Tao, Lin Jing could only say that the pill Tao of the Lin family was truly extraordinary. Subsequently, Lin Jing also put away the Lin family's pill Tao. Right now, his main priority was figuring out how to leave Immortal Crossing Island. As for the pill Tao, that could wait until he was out. After putting away the Lin family's pill Dao, Lin Jing picked up the last jade slip, which was the Overlord Divine Physique, and then delved his divine sense into it. However, just seeing the brief description, Lin Jing couldn't help but furrow his brows. This body refining technique was quite extraordinary. But to cultivate this Overlord Divine Physique, it required a substantial amount of spiritual power. This technique required condensing one's own spiritual power into 108 acupoints throughout the body, then using the Overlord Divine Physique technique to temper the spiritual power within these acupoints. After tempering is complete, the refined spiritual power must be dispersed throughout the body and integrated within. Just like enhancing cultivation, it steadily increases the strength of one's body. And during this condensation, it utilizes one's own cultivation. That means to enhance the Overlord Divine Physique, one's own cultivation must be consumed, which in severe cases might even cause one's cultivation realm to fall. This was quite distressing. Lin Jing's cultivation speed was not very fast to begin with. He had only reached his current cultivation by continuously consuming flawless elixirs. If he were to cultivate this Overlord Divine Physique, his cultivation speed would likely slow down even more. However, the Overlord Divine Physique did have advantageous aspects. That is, it can be cultivated concurrently with other body refinement techniques and does not conflict with them. Especially when cultivated to the end, the Overlord Divine Physique could even directly withstand the spells and divine skills of top cultivators with the body alone. By the time he reached the end, Lin Jing had finally understood. This Overlord Divine Physique was in fact equivalent to another cultivation method, but this method only refined the physique and not the spell techniques. However, cultivating this method still consumed cultivation. If one were to cultivate this method, and then another, it meant that a cultivator had to put in twice the effort to reach the progress of a regular cultivator. But the benefits were also obvious. A person who cultivated two methods would definitely be much stronger than one who cultivated just one. If two cultivators of the same realm practiced two methods, one could easily defeat the other without much effort. In the end, after much contemplation, Lin Jing decided to set aside the Overlord Divine Physique for now, as he currently had the 7 refinement body forging technique to cultivate first. If it really didn't work out, then he would try cultivating the Overlord Divine Physique. Since resolving the remnant soul issue, Lin Jing had settled down by this point. Most of the time, he was cultivating the 7 refinement body forging technique. This 7 refinement body forging technique, as the name suggests, required 7 refinements, each one pushing the body's resilience to a new level. By the time he reached the final refinement, Lin Jing's body would be as durable as tempered steel, indestructible. If he reached the 7th refinement, even the flying swords of Foundation establishment cultivators could be resisted with his body. However, although the 7 refinement body forging technique could fend off physical attacks, it was powerless against cultivator spell attacks. Fortunately, this technique was not hard to cultivate. In just over 2 months, Lin Jing had already reached the 3rd level. Time passed quickly, and several more days had gone by. It was another night of a full moon. Lin Jing was already prepared early on. This time, he planned to enter the trial grounds to seek adventures. When night fell and the moon climbed the tree branches, Lin Jing, who had rested fully, came out from the system space. At this moment, after a day's rest, Lin Jing was in prime condition. Arriving at the pond, Lin Jing immediately saw the entrance to the trial grounds reflected on the surface of the water. The trial grounds were the same as what he had seen before, filled with pervasive yellow sand, obscuring visibility. Then, Lin Jing soared up and flew towards the entrance of the trial grounds. As Lin Jing flew above the pond's entrance to the trial grounds, ripples spread out just like breaking the surface of the water. And Lin Jing, as if sinking through the water, slowly entered the trial grounds. Upon entering the trial grounds, Lin Jing was immediately battered by the fierce winds, making it difficult for him to stand stable. The wind inside was much more severe than the desert outside. This wind carried countless sand particles and small rocks. Even with the third level of the 7 refinement body forging technique, when those particles and rocks struck Lin Jing, he still felt some pain. Lin Jing couldn't help furrowing his brows. If this was just the beginning of the trial grounds, how much more intense would it be further inside? However, after frowning, Lin Jing then stepped forward and continued onward. It definitely wouldn't retreat just because of this little difficulty. The trial grounds, just like the desert outside, appeared vast. But since entering, Lin Jing had felt an obscure guidance directing him forward. Lin Jing followed this guidance, taking steps forward. In this manner, he walked for half an hour. Lin Jing was now advancing against the sandstorm. Moreover, each step forward was incredibly difficult. The sand and rocks lifted by the fierce wind, as they scourged Lin Jing's body, left scratch marks. Keep in mind, Lin Jing was at the 3rd level of the 7 refinement body forging technique, and his body was comparable to ordinary metal. Yet, even then, it could still be scratched by sand and rocks, showing just how fierce the winds inside the trial grounds were. And he hadn't even truly reached the trial area yet. Only by crossing this desert region could one arrive at the actual trial grounds to begin the trial. Afterwards, Lin Jing continued forward. Another half an hour later, Lin Jing finally walked out of the sandstorm area. At this point, Lin Jing's clothes were tattered, hanging on his body, and his body was covered with wounds, with blood seeping from them. Within the trial grounds, there was no spiritual power, nor could any spells be used. Originally, after covering most of the distance, Lin Jing had planned to use a spiritual shield to fend off the sandstorm. However, as soon as the spiritual shield formed, it immediately dissipated. It couldn't provide any protection at all. This was why Lin Jing arrived here, covered in scars. After leaving the sandstorm area, a stele appeared in front of Lin Jing, and behind it was a towering platform constructed from countless yellow-brown boulders. This platform was rectangular, wider at the bottom and narrower at the top, with a wide, large staircase leading from the base directly to the top of the platform. At the top of the platform, it was shrouded in mist, and Lin Jing, standing below, couldn't see anything.